All right, diving into a new topic today.
Yeah, this one should be interesting.
Ramadan prep?
Mm-hmm.
You guys gave us some great sources for this one.
I know. I was really excited to get into these.
Yeah, so two YouTube videos from these Islamic scholars.
Asim al-Hakim.
Yeah, Asim al-Hakim and Sheikh Okasha Kameni.
Okashikami, yeah. And then that practical guide, too.
Right. How should Muslims prepare for Ramadan? So we're going to look at like all angles of this, right? The practical, the spiritual, even the psychological stuff.
Totally.
And try to give you guys some good takeaways no matter how familiar you are with the practice.
Exactly.
Okay, so we all know Ramadan is about fasting, right?
Yeah, of course.
But Asim al-Hakim, he had this really interesting way of putting it.
Oh, yeah, with the
The
bodybuilders.
bodybuilder.
Like how they approach their training?
Yeah. So he's saying that dedicated Muslims, they're like these bodybuilders, they're doing the heavy lifting all year round.
Consistent.
Right, they're not just like suddenly cramming in all their spiritual workouts just because Ramadan started.
You've got to be a lifestyle.
Exactly. So they're fasting regularly, praying, giving to charity. It's all part of their routine.
So when Ramadan comes around, it's not this huge shock to the system.
Exactly. It's just like a natural progression.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And al-Hakim, he also pointed out that the people who aren't as prepared,
Right, who maybe haven't been putting in that consistent effort.
yeah, they often feel totally overwhelmed by Ramadan.
They burn out quickly.
They burn out, exactly.
This makes total sense because it's like you wouldn't run a marathon without training for it, right?
Exactly.
And that's what the How Should Muslims Prepare guide calls Ramadan a spiritual marathon.
Okay, so if it's a marathon,
How do we train for it?
exactly. And this guide gives some really practical advice for getting ready both physically and mentally.
Yeah, let's break that down a little bit.
Okay, so physical prep, one thing that really stood out to me was gradually adjusting your sleep schedule.
Oh, yeah. Waking up for Suhoor can be brutal if you're not used to it.
Oh, tell me about it. I'm not a morning person.
I hear you.
The guide also suggests cutting back on caffeine and junk food.
Makes sense. You don't want to deal with withdrawals while you're fasting.
No, absolutely not.
And it also emphasizes the importance of making up any missed fasts from the previous year.
Right, kind of like clearing your spiritual debts before starting fresh.
Exactly.
And then there's the idea of easing into fasting.
Right, just like a runners would have practice runs before the big day.
Yeah, so the guide suggests practicing on Mondays and Thursdays.
Or on the white days.
Yeah, for those who maybe aren't familiar, these days have special significance in Islam, and fasting on them is considered particularly rewarding.
So it's all about conditioning your body and mind, gradually building up that stamina.
Okay, so we've covered the physical side of things.
What about the mental prep?
Yeah, what does the guide say about getting mentally ready for Ramadan?
Well, it suggests incorporating more acts of worship into your daily routine.
Okay, so things like...
Extra prayers, dhikr, the remembrance of Allah.
Right.
And setting realistic goals for reading the Quran.
So instead of trying to cram it all in once Ramadan starts.
It's about building those habits beforehand.
Exactly. Consistency is key.
While those practical steps are really important, let's not forget about the spiritual core of preparing for Ramadan.
Right, the heart of it all.
Exactly. And both Sheikh Okasha Kameni and Abu Bakr Zood really emphasize the importance of Toba.
Toba, right, repentance.
Yeah, turning back to Allah, seeking forgiveness, making things right.
Like hitting the reset button before Ramadan begins.
I like that analogy.
Yeah, and Sheikh Kameni had this beautiful way of explaining it.
Oh, yeah, what was it?
He compared Ramadan to an honored guest,
Okay.
and he said the best way to entertain this guest is through sincere repentance.
So it's about approaching Ramadan with a clean slate.
Yeah, I love that.
And Abu Bakr Zood takes this idea even deeper.
Oh, really? How so?
He talks about the power of sincere istighfar.
That's asking for forgiveness from Allah, right?
Yes, and he uses this really powerful image to describe it.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
He says that sins are like boulders blocking our path to Allah.
Wow, that's a strong image.
Right, and seeking forgiveness is like crushing those boulders.
Clearing the way for a closer connection with Allah.
Exactly. It makes you realize the weight of those sins.
And how seeking forgiveness can lighten the load.
Absolutely. And Zood even suggests the ideal time for this boulder crushing.
When's that?
Those quiet moments before Fajr prayer.
When the world is...
You can really connect with yourself on a deeper level then.
It's true. There's something special about that time of day.
So we've talked about repentance and seeking forgiveness.
Yeah.
But Sheikh Kameni also shared a compelling story about a poet named Al-Farazdak.
Al-Farazdak.
Yeah, he was known for his sharp wit, his sometimes scathing poetry.
Okay, but how does a poet fit into all of this Ramadan prep talk?
Well, Al-Farazdak's story is a powerful example of transformation.
Oh, okay.
He was once feared for his words, but he underwent a profound change.
What happened?
He repented and dedicated himself to memorizing the Quran.
Wow, that's quite a turnaround.
It really is.
What I find striking is that he didn't just talk about change.
Right.
He took action. He literally chained himself to his house.
He shackled his foot.
He said he wouldn't leave until he had memorized the entire Quran.
Talk about commitment.
That's some serious dedication. I mean, wow, chaining yourself to our house, that's serious.
It's a pretty extreme way to stay focused.
But it shows how powerful the desire for change can be.
And for Al-Farazdak, it wasn't just about memorizing the Quran,
Right. It was about really living its message.
letting it transform his life.
That reminds me of what Abu Bakr Zood was saying.
About the people who are most successful in Ramadan.
Yeah, he said they approach it with a clean heart and a genuine willingness to change.
It's a month of immense spiritual potential.
It's like Ramadan can be this catalyst for real, lasting change.
Absolutely. It's about so much more than just abstaining from food and drink.
It's about cultivating a deeper connection with yourself.
And with those around you?
Okay, so speaking of self-improvement,
Yeah.
Sheikh Hamni brought up something I never expected.
What was that?
Benjamin Franklin.
Oh, yeah, that was interesting.
He connected Ramadan preparation with Franklin's idea of the industrious individual.
It might seem like a strange comparison,
It did at first.
but it actually makes a lot of sense.
Okay, listening.
So Franklin, he was all about maximizing your time, being productive, cutting out unnecessary stuff,
He had that famous quote, right?
lose no time, and always be useful in that which is beneficial, and cut off all unnecessary actions.
I wrote that one down. It's so relevant even today.
Right. And how does this relate to Ramadan?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Well, think about it. We live in a world of constant distractions.
Social media, emails, notifications.
It's so easy to get sucked in,
and lose sight of what really matters.
especially during a month that's supposed to be about spiritual growth and reflection.
So are you saying we should all go off the grid for Ramadan?
Not necessarily, but maybe we can learn something from Franklin's approach.
Like being more intentional with our time?
Yes, and especially with our technology use.
So before we check our phones or browse the internet,
Ask yourself, is this serving me? Is it helping me achieve my goals for Ramadan?
it's like applying that same discipline we have with fasting and prayer to our digital consumption.
Exactly. Imagine if we minimized those distractions.
Even just a little bit.
We'd have so much more mental space for the things that really matter,
Connecting with Allah, opening our spiritual practice.
strengthening our relationship.
I'm really seeing how important a holistic approach to Ramadan prep is.
It's not just about one thing.
It's about the physical, the mental, the spiritual. It's all connected.
And when we prepare on all those levels,
We set ourselves up for a much more fulfilling Ramadan experience.
it's like we're building a foundation for growth.
It's interesting how all these different sources we looked at,
Yeah.
even though they come from different places and speakers,
They all seem to point to this idea of intentional transformation,
whether it's the practical tips from the guide,
or the spiritual insights from the scholars.
even Benjamin Franklin's wisdom on productivity,
It's all about recognizing the potential for change that Ramadan offers.
it's like we're assembling a toolbox for Ramadan.
A toolbox filled with different tools and techniques,
And each source gives us another tool to help us navigate the month.
with more intention, purpose, and meaning.
Yeah, it's like Ramadan is this incredible opportunity
To really push ourselves.
to grow and become better versions of ourselves.
Exactly, but it's not about being perfect.
No, of course not.
It's about striving to improve a little bit each day.
Progress over perfection, right?
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Ramadan preparation.
What's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
That's a great question.
I think the biggest takeaway is that preparing for Ramadan is this journey.
Okay.
It's a journey of self-reflection, purification, intention.
And it's about asking yourself some tough questions.
Yeah, like, how can I apply these insights to make this Ramadan truly meaningful?
Right, what changes can I commit to?
And not just for the month itself.
But for the long haul.
Exactly. It's about making Ramadan a springboard for lasting change.
So it's not just about surviving a month.
It's about thriving in it.
And letting that experience ripple outwards into the rest of your life.
A Ramadan is a gift,
A gift.
It's an opportunity for spiritual renewal and growth.
And the more prepared we are,
The more we can benefit from that gift.
So to all our listeners out there, we want to hear from you.
Yeah, what resonated with you?
What are your intentions for this Ramadan?
Share your thoughts, your experiences.
Join the conversation on social media,
Let's learn and grow together.
because sharing our insights,
It enriches the journey for everyone.
that's so true.
And until next time.
May your preparations be filled with ease and blessings.
And purpose.
Yes, and purpose.